My name is Elsa. I'm 36, and until last spring, I thought I had the perfect life. A successful career, a beautiful home in suburban Chicago, and 8 years of marriage to Daniel, my college sweetheart. Then one morning, I forgot my keys and had to rush back home. I never expected that returning for something so simple would shatter my entire world. The sounds coming from our bedroom upstairs made me freeze in the hallway. What I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about love and trust. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had that gut feeling that something in your life wasn't quite right. I met Daniel at a marketing conference in Seattle 10 years ago. I was 26, then ambitious, and focused on my career at a boutique agency. He was 28, charming, and working his way up in financial consulting. Our eyes met across a crowded networking event, and by the end of the night, we were sharing drinks and dreams at the hotel bar. "You're different from other women I've met," Daniel told me that night, his blue eyes sparkling under the dim lights. "You have ambition. Drive. It's attractive." Our romance was a whirlwind, long distance at first, me in Chicago, him in New York. But the connection was undeniable. 6 months of frequent flyer miles and late-night phone calls later, Daniel surprised me by transferring to the Chicago office of his firm. "I couldn't stand being away from you," he said, when he showed up at my door with his suitcase. "Chicago has great opportunities too." 2 years after we met, we had a beautiful wedding at his family's estate in Connecticut. His mother, Sandra, planned most of it. She was that type of woman, controlling but with impeccable taste. I didn't mind. I was too busy building my client list and reputation in the marketing world. "You two are perfect together," my best friend Amanda said during her maid of honor speech. "The power couple we all aspire to be." And we were for a while. Daniel climbed the corporate ladder quickly, making senior financial consultant by 33. I was promoted to creative director at my agency around the same time. Our careers were thriving, our social calendar always full. We decided to hold off on having children, mutual agreement to focus on our careers first. "We have time," Daniel would say whenever the subject came up. "Let's enjoy our freedom while we build our empire." Last year, we finally bought our dream home, a stunning colonial in one of Chicago's most prestigious suburbs. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a backyard perfect for summer entertaining. We spent months decorating it, finding the perfect pieces to make it uniquely ours. I remember standing in our finished master bedroom, Daniel's arms wrapped around my waist from behind, feeling like I'd finally arrived. "We've made it, babe," he whispered in my ear. Amanda lived just a few blocks away. She and I had been friends since college, and having her close made the new neighborhood feel instantly like home. We'd have coffee most Saturday mornings, jogging together through the tree-lined streets before rewarding ourselves with lattes and pastries. "You really do have it all, Elsa," she said once as we sat on her porch. "The career, the gorgeous husband, this house. You're living the dream." And I believed her. I believed I was lucky. 6 months before everything fell apart, Daniel hired a new assistant, Brooke, young 27 with a business degree, and as I would later discover, ambitions that extended beyond her professional life. I met her at the company Christmas party. Petite, with long blonde hair and a laugh that somehow carried across crowded rooms. "Your husband is such an incredible mentor," she told me, champagne flute in hand. "I've learned so much already." I noticed how she looked at him, admiration that felt a touch too personal, but I dismissed it. I trusted Daniel completely. He'd never given me reason not to. Looking back, the signs were there flashing like warning lights I deliberately ignored. Daniel working later than usual, a new cologne I didn't buy him, passwords changed on his phone, texts he'd angle away from my line of sight. "Just work stress," he'd explain when I noticed his distraction at dinner. "This new client is demanding. And I believed him because it was easier than considering alternatives, because my own career was taking off with potential for partnership at the agency, because we'd just renovated the kitchen and were planning a trip to Bali for our upcoming anniversary. The morning it happened started normally. Tuesday, April 14th. I was preparing for a major presentation to a potential new client, a national retail chain that could double our agency's revenue. "You're going to crush it today," Daniel said, kissing my cheek before heading to the shower. I was rushing, mentally rehearsing my pitch while gathering materials. I left the house at 7:30, my mind already in the conference room. It wasn't until I was parking at the office that I realized I'd forgotten my presentation materials. The custom-designed portfolio I'd spent weeks perfecting sitting on my home office desk, where I'd been reviewing it the night before. "I'll be there in 40 minutes, I told my assistant Jackson over the phone as I pulled back onto the road. "Stall them if they arrive early." The drive back to the suburbs felt interminable, every red light an enemy. All I could think about was the portfolio, not once imagining that this simple mistake would collapse my carefully constructed life like a house of cards. I pulled into our driveway at 8:15, noticing with mild surprise that Daniel's car was still there. He usually left for work by 7:45. Maybe he was running late too. The house was quiet when I entered that strange daytime stillness of an empty home. I called out instinctively, "Daniel, you still here?" No answer. I figured he might be on a call in his home office at the back of the house, so I headed toward my own office near the front. That's when I heard it, a sound so out of place that at first my brain couldn't properly process it. A moan, then another. I froze mid-step in the hallway, my hand gripping my car keys so tightly they bit into my palm. For a moment, I thought perhaps it was the neighbours. Our houses weren't that far apart, or maybe a television Daniel had left on. But then I heard his voice. Low, husky, saying things I'd heard him say to me countless times before. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, heart hammering against my ribs, palms suddenly slick with sweat, a wave of nausea rising in my throat. I stood rooted to that spot in the hallway, unable to move forward or retreat. The sounds continued growing in intensity. I recognized the creaking rhythm of our bed, the expensive mattress we'd spent a small fortune on because Daniel said it was worth investing in good sleep. Some detached part of my brain was urging me to leave, to pretend I'd never come home, to spare myself what was coming next. But my feet began moving toward the stairs, almost against my will. Each step up felt like climbing a mountain, my legs heavy and uncooperative. The sounds grew clearer, unmistakable now. I reached the top of the stairs, our bedroom door at the end of the hallway, partially open. A slice of morning light spilled out onto the carpet. I inched closer, barely breathing. Through the crack in the door, I could see the foot of our bed. The cream-coloured duvet was on the floor, and then, as I shifted slightly, I saw them. Daniel, his back to me, his body moving rhythmically over a smaller figure, blonde hair splayed across my pillow, small hands with perfect French manicure clutching at his shoulders. Brooke. My vision tunneled darkness closing in around the edges. I must have made some small sound because Daniel turned slightly, though not enough to see me. It gave me a perfect view of his face, eyes closed, lips parted, lost in pleasure. The engagement ring he'd proposed with sparkled on Brooke's finger as her hand moved to his hair. I staggered backward, suddenly desperate not to be discovered. The betrayal was a physical pain, like someone had reached into my chest and was squeezing my heart with brutal force. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Somehow, I made it back down the stairs without falling. The portfolio, the whole reason I'd returned home, completely forgotten. All I could think was, get out now. I slipped out the front door, closing it with exaggerated care behind me. In my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I sat staring at our beautiful home with its perfect landscaping and custom mailbox with both our names. The tears came then hot and fast, blurring my vision as I backed out of the driveway. I had no destination in mind. I just drove the image of them together, burned into my memory, playing on endless repeat. My husband, my assistant, my bed, my life revealed as a beautiful lie. I don't remember driving to Lakeside Park. I just found myself there, parked facing the water, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing in a world suddenly turned liquid and unstable. My phone buzzed. Jackson from the office. Elsa, the clients are here. Are you close? I cleared my throat, amazed I could form words at all. I'm not feeling well. Food poisoning. Can you ask Terry to handle the presentation? Of course. Feel better. The lie came easily. How could I explain that my life had just imploded? That I'd just watched my husband having sex with his assistant in our bed? I sat in that car for almost an hour, replaying the past 6 months through this new, terrible lens. The late nights at the office, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the way he'd stopped reaching for me in bed, claiming exhaustion. Small expenses on our credit card that didn't quite make sense. A restaurant in a part of town we never visited, a jewelry store charge a month before my birthday that never materialized as a gift for me. His new phone password, the way he'd started showering as soon as he got home, how he'd sometimes smell of unfamiliar perfume he claimed was from hugging clients. God, I'd been so blind, so willfully, stupidly trusting. My phone rang again. Amanda. I almost didn't answer, but some desperate need for connection won out. Hey, what's up? I tried to sound normal and failed miserably. Elsa, what's wrong? You sound awful. The concern in her voice broke something in me. Can I come over? Of course. Are you okay to drive? I'm already in the car. 10 minutes later, I was on Amanda's couch, a mug of untouched tea growing cold in my hands as I recounted what I'd seen. The words came out disjointed, interrupted by sobs I couldn't control. Amanda sat beside me, her face a study in horror and sympathy. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I've been worried about this, she finally said so softly I almost missed it. I stared at her. What? She looked miserable. I saw them together about 3 weeks ago, at Riverside Cafe. They didn't see me. I was picking up takeout, and they were in the back corner. They looked intimate. I told myself it was just a work lunch, but why didn't you tell me? My voice rose, anger briefly displacing grief. I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to hurt you without proof. She reached for my hand. I'm so sorry, Elsa. I should have said something. Fresh betrayal washed over me. Not just Daniel and Brooke, but now learning my best friend had suspected and stayed silent. Do you think everyone knows? Am I the joke of his office? The thought made me physically ill. No, Amanda insisted. I'm sure they've been careful, except, well, not careful enough today. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Then again and again. I showed Amanda the screen. 15 missed calls, multiple texts asking where I was, if I was okay, saying he was worried. He must have heard me leave, I said dully, or realized his car is still in the driveway when it shouldn't be. The texts grew more frantic as the day wore on. I watched them accumulate without responding. Each one felt like another lie. You need to confront him, Amanda said eventually. Not for him, for you. You deserve answers. I'll go home tonight, I decided. But I need to prepare. I can't fall apart in front of him. We spent the afternoon planning what I would say, how I would stay calm. Amanda offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to do alone. You'll call me right after, she asked as I was leaving. I promise. Driving home, I rehearsed opening lines in my head. Should I start with what I saw, ask him casually about his day, and wait for the lies? The scenarios played out as I navigated the now dark streets of our neighborhood. As I turned onto our street, I saw our house ablaze with lights. Daniel's car in the driveway, alone, thankfully. At least he hadn't had the audacity to have her over again. My hands were steady. Now my mind clear with purpose as I parked and walked to the door of what had been my dream home that morning and now felt like a beautifully wrapped package. containing nothing but betrayal. Daniel was in the kitchen when I walked in, pacing and running his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd once found endearing. He spun around when he heard the door. "Elsa, where have you been? I've been calling you all day." He rushed toward me like he was going to embrace me, but something in my expression stopped him short. "Working late," I said, the lie tasting bitter. I set my purse down with deliberate care, watching his face. He looked worried, but not guilty. How many times had he come home to me after being with her wearing that same neutral expression, "You didn't answer any of my calls or texts"? He was trying to sound concerned, not accusatory, but I heard the edge in his voice. The annoyance that I'd made him worry that I hadn't been available when he wanted me to be. "My phone died." Another lie. "What about you? How was your day?" It was surreal standing in our kitchen having this mundane conversation when my entire world had collapsed. I watched him move to the refrigerator, taking out ingredients for dinner like it was any other Tuesday. "Exhausting. The Johnston account is a nightmare." He began chopping vegetables. "I thought we could do pasta tonight. I picked up that sauce you like from the Italian market." The domesticity of the scene was almost more than I could bear. How dare he stand there making dinner, acting like everything was normal? "Sounds good." I managed my voice surprisingly steady. I moved to the cabinet for wine glasses, wondering idly if I could get through dinner without screaming or throwing something. "Red or white with pasta?" "Red," he said, smiling at me. That smile I'd fallen in love with. "Are you feeling okay? You look pale." I poured the wine, sliding his glass across the counter. "Actually, I had an interesting morning." "Oh." He was only half listening, focused on mincing garlic. "Yes, I forgot my portfolio for the big presentation. Had to come back home to get it." His hands stilled for just a fraction of a second before he continued chopping. If I hadn't been watching so carefully, I might have missed it. "What time was that?" His voice was carefully casual. "Around 8:15. I sipped my wine eyes, never leaving his face. "You were still here." Now his hands stopped completely. He set the knife down slowly and turned to face me. "Elsa, you weren't alone, Daniel." The kitchen fell silent except for the soft bubbling of the pasta water beginning to boil. Daniel's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Surprise, guilt, calculation, and finally a sort of resigned acknowledgement. "How much did you see?" he asked quietly. The confirmation, even though I'd known it was coming, hit me like a physical blow. "Enough," I whispered. "More than enough." He ran his hand through his hair again, agitated. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "Find out!" I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't resemble humour in the slightest. "You wanted me to find out. Were you planning to tell me you're sleeping with your 27-year-old assistant in our bed?" "It's not like that." His tone turned defensive. "It's not just sex, Elsa." The implication sent ice through my veins. "What is it then?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I love her." 3 words. 3 simple words that demolished whatever was left of my heart. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "It was a mistake." But, "I love her." "You love her," I repeated, my voice hollow. "And me? What about your wife of 8 years? Daniel sighed, turning off the stove burner. "Dinner forgotten. I'll always care about you, Elsa. But we've grown apart. You're so focused on your career, always at the office or travelling for clients. When was the last time we really connected?" The audacity of his attempt to shift blame onto me sparked a rage that cut through my shock and grief. "Don't you dare," I hissed. "Don't you dare try to make this my fault. I work hard, yes. So do you. That was our agreement, our partnership. It doesn't give you the right to cheat." "I didn't plan for this to happen," he said, spreading his hands in a gesture of helplessness that made me want to scream. "Brooke and I, it just developed naturally. She understands me in ways you stopped trying to years ago." Each word was another knife. I took a large swallow of wine to stop myself from throwing the glass at his head. "How long?" I demanded. He hesitated. "Does it matter? How long, Daniel?" 5 months, he admitted. 5 months. nearly half a year of lies, of coming home to me after being with her, of making love to me in the same bed where I'd seen them today. Where else? The question came unbidden. What? Where else have you been with her? Just our bed, your office hotels. I need to know every place. I can never go again without thinking of this. He looked uncomfortable. Elsa, this isn't productive. Answer the question. Here mostly, he said quietly, when you were travelling for work. My office a few times, her apartment. Each location was another piece of my life contaminated by their betrayal. I thought of the business trip I'd taken to New York 2 months ago, 3 nights away. Had he brought her into our home the moment I was gone? Had they slept in our bed, used our shower, cooked in our kitchen? The jewellery charge in February, I said, suddenly remembering. The one you said was a surprise for my birthday. That was for her, wasn't it? His silence was confirmation enough. What was it? I pressed, needing to know, to understand the full scope of his betrayal. A bracelet, he murmured, with her birthstone. I laughed again, that same terrible sound. And she's wearing my engagement ring now too. Daniel's head snapped up. What? No, that's not possible. I saw it, Daniel. On her hand, today. He shook his head. That's not your ring. I proposed to her last weekend. The room tilted. I gripped the counter for support. You proposed, you're not even divorced, and you proposed to her. I was going to tell you, he said, having the decency to look ashamed. I've been trying to find the right time. The right time, I echoed. To tell your wife you're leaving her for your assistant. When exactly would that perfect moment have been? He didn't answer. Do you want a divorce? I asked the question, burning my throat on the way out. He met my eyes finally. Yes, I want to marry Brooke. The last shred of hope I'd been unconsciously clinging to disintegrated. This wasn't a fling, this wasn't something we could work through in therapy. This was the end of my marriage delivered in our kitchen over uncorked wine and uncooked pasta. Get out, I said, my voice deadly calm. Elsa, this is my house too. Get out, I screamed, the control I'd been maintaining shattering completely. Get out now, or I swear to God, Daniel, I will call every client, every colleague, every friend we have, and tell them exactly what you've done, how you've been screwing your assistant for 5 months while your wife worked 60-hour weeks to build a life with you. He paled. You wouldn't. Try me. I was trembling with rage. You can come back for your things when I'm not here. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the rest. For a moment, I thought he would argue. Then he sighed, grabbed his keys and phone from the counter, and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. For what it's worth, I never meant to hurt you. I yanked my wedding ring off my finger and threw it at him. It hit his chest and fell to the floor with a small, pathetic clink. Get out of my sight. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow felt more final than if he'd slammed it. I stood frozen in the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the dinner we'd never share in the home that had become a monument to lies. Then, alone at last, I sank to the floor and let the tidal wave of grief consume me completely. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of pain and humiliation. I moved into Amanda's guest room, unable to stand being in the house where I'd seen them together. Daniel texted once to ask when he could get his things. I told Amanda to let him in when I was at work. I went through the motions, somehow managing to function professionally while my personal life was in shambles. I'd lost the retail client. Missing the presentation had cost us the account, but my boss was surprisingly understanding when I finally broke down and explained the situation. Take some time if you need it, she said, concern evident in her voice. But work was the only thing keeping me sane, the only part of my life that still made sense. I threw myself into it with desperate intensity. Sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together in our bed. Some nights, I'd lie awake until dawn, replaying our marriage in my mind, wondering if there had been signs from the beginning. Had I ever really known him at all? Amanda tried her best to help, but there was a distance between us now. Her failure to warn me about seeing them together had created a crack in our friendship that I wasn't ready to repair. "You need to eat something," she'd say, placing plates of food I couldn't stomach in front of me. "You're wasting away." I'd lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks. My clothes hung loose, my face gaunt. I couldn't taste food, couldn't summon the energy to care about nourishment when I felt so hollow inside. The worst part was the social media. 2 weeks after Daniel left, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot. Daniel and Brooke together at a restaurant we used to frequent, her hand with the ring clearly visible resting on his. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. I made the mistake of checking his Instagram that night. Their relationship was already public. Photos of weekend trips, cozy dinners, morning coffee. The comments were filled with congratulations on their engagement. Friends, our friends, wishing them happiness. It was as if I'd never existed, as if our 8 years together had been erased overnight. Some of our friends reached out to me awkwardly, expressing sympathy or outrage on my behalf. Others took his side, suggesting that these things happen, that people fall out of love. A few admitted they'd known about the affair, but hadn't wanted to get involved. Each revelation was another small death. I started drinking too much. A glass of wine with dinner became a bottle, then 2. Numbing myself became the only way to get through nights that stretched endlessly before me. "This isn't healthy," Amanda said one morning, eyeing the empty bottles in her recycling bin. "Nothing about this situation is healthy," I shot back. The nadir came on a rainy Friday night. I'd had too much wine and made the catastrophic decision to drive by our house. My house technically, though I couldn't bear to live in it. Daniel's car was in the driveway. So was another car I recognized as Brooke's white BMW. The lights were on in the living room, warm yellow spilling onto the wet lawn. I parked across the street and sat watching, torturing myself with images of what they might be doing inside. They emerged eventually, running through the rain to her car. Daniel pulled her close for a kiss before she got in, both of them laughing. He was wearing the sweater I'd given him last Christmas. She was wearing what looked like one of my scarves. Something inside me snapped. I followed her car when she left, keeping a careful distance. She drove to a small coffee shop downtown. I parked and waited until she was inside, then followed. She was at the counter, ordering when I approached. Her eyes widened when she saw me, a flicker of guilt quickly replaced by defiance. "Elsa," she said cautiously, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I bet you didn't." My voice was calm, belying the storm raging inside me. "Nice scarf. It looks familiar." She touched it self-consciously. "Daniel gave it to me." "I'm sure he did. It was mine." The barista called her name, sliding a cup across the counter. Brooke reached for it, the diamond on her finger catching the light. My diamond redesigned slightly, but unmistakable. "He had it reset," she said, following my gaze. "I hope that doesn't upset you." The calculated cruelty of the statement pushed me over the edge I'd been teetering on for weeks. "Doesn't upset me." I laughed loud enough that people at nearby tables turned to look. "You sleep with my husband in my bed, you wear my clothes, you flaunt my redesigned ring, and you hope it doesn't upset me." "Elsa, people are staring," she hissed, glancing around nervously. "Let them stare. Let them see what kind of person steals another woman's husband." My voice had risen to a near shout. "Does it make you feel special, Brooke? Being the younger model, do you think he won't do the same thing to you the moment someone newer and shinier comes along?" Her face flushed. "You don't understand. Daniel and I have a real connection. Something was missing in your marriage long before I came along. A real connection," I repeated, my voice dripping with contempt. "Tell me, did he take you to Bellini's for your first date? Did he tell you that you're different from other women because of your ambition? That's his standard line." Uncertainty flickered across her face, confirming my suspicion. I leaned closer. "You're not special, Brooke. You're just convenient and temporary." She slapped me. The sharp crack silenced the coffee shop completely. My cheek burned, tears springing to my eyes from the sting. You're pathetic, she spat. No wonder he left you. I lunged for her, blind with rage, but strong arms caught me from behind. It was the cafe manager, a tall woman with kind eyes. That's enough, she said firmly. Both of you need to leave, now. Brooke gathered her things and hurried out, leaving me standing there trembling and humiliated. The manager released me gently. Are you okay to drive? She asked quietly. I wasn't. I called Amanda, who came to pick me up without question. I sat in her car, numb with shame and lingering anger. What happened? She asked as we drove home. I told her everything, following Brooke, the confrontation, the slap. Oh, Elsa, she sighed. This has to stop. You're destroying yourself while they move on with their lives. Her words, though, kindly meant cut deep because they were true. I was letting Daniel and Brooke control my life, my thoughts, my emotions. I was giving them power they didn't deserve. That night, lying in Amanda's guest bed, something shifted inside me. The rage and grief were still there. But alongside them, a tiny spark of determination took hold. I couldn't continue like this. I wouldn't let them win by destroying myself. In the morning, I made my first appointment with a divorce attorney. You have excellent grounds for a favourable settlement, Gloria Bennett said, reviewing the notes she'd taken during our 2-hour consultation. My new divorce attorney was a petite woman in her 50s with steel grey hair and a reputation for being ruthlessly effective. Infidelity evidence of financial infidelity with the jewellery purchase using marital assets to fund the affair will go after half of everything plus compensation for emotional distress. I nodded, feeling a strange detachment from the proceedings. 3 days had passed since the coffee shop incident, and I'd made several life-altering decisions in that time. I want the house, I said, not to live in. I'll never live there again, but to sell. And I want a forensic accountant to look at our finances for the past year. I suspect there's more he's hidden. Gloria smiled approvingly. That's exactly right. We'll file for temporary possession of the marital home and get a financial restraining order in place immediately so he can't move or hide assets. The legal process gave me a focus I desperately needed. I spent the weekend gathering documents, passwords, account numbers, anything Gloria might need to build our case. The activity kept the darker thoughts at bay, gave me purpose. I returned to the house the following Tuesday, knowing Daniel would be at work. Amanda came with me for moral support. Walking through the front door was harder than I'd expected. Memories lurked in every corner. We'll be quick, Amanda promised, squeezing my hand. Just get what you need and we'll go. Daniel had removed most of his clothes and personal items, but the house still felt contaminated by his presence and hers. I went to our bedroom last, steeling myself before entering the space where I'd witnessed their betrayal. He'd changed the bedding, small mercy. I packed essential clothing, jewellery, family photos, and personal mementos. In his home office, I found what Gloria had suggested might exist, a second credit card statement mailed to his office but accidentally left in a drawer. Charges for hotels, restaurants, gifts, months of evidence. The statement also revealed something unexpected, withdrawals from our joint investment account, totaling nearly $60,000 over the past 4 months. This is financial infidelity, Gloria confirmed when I brought her the evidence, and it strengthens our case considerably. Armed with proof of both emotional and financial betrayal, we filed for divorce the following week. The temporary orders gave me possession of the house and froze our major assets until the settlement could be negotiated. Daniel was furious. His attorney, younger, less experienced than Gloria, argued that the withdrawals were for legitimate business expenses. Gloria demolished that claim with evidence that the money had gone toward a down payment on a condo where Daniel and Brooke were now living. He's been planning this for months, I realised during a strategy session with Gloria. The affair, the money, all of it. Men like your husband think they're clever, Gloria said, arranging documents with practiced precision. They rarely are. I put the house on the market. I couldn't bear the thought of another night under that roof, and the real estate market in our neighbourhood was strong. It sold within 2 weeks for more than our asking price. Seeing the sold sign in the front yard should have felt victorious. Instead, it felt like the final death of the dream we'd built together. The home that was supposed to be our forever place, now just another asset to be divided. During this time, I took a leave of absence from work. My boss was understanding, offering me paid family leave and assuring me my position would be waiting when I was ready to return. The break from professional responsibilities gave me space to focus on healing. I started therapy with Dr. Winters, a divorce specialist, who helped me navigate the complex emotions of betrayal. What you're experiencing is a form of trauma, she explained during our first session. The discovery of infidelity creates a psychological injury similar to PTSD. The validation that my pain was real, not an overreaction, gave me permission to acknowledge the depth of my hurt without shame. How do I stop feeling like this? I asked her. Like my chest is being crushed every time I think of them together. You don't stop the feeling, she said gently. You move through it, feel it fully, then let it pass. The feelings will come less frequently with time. I doubted her then, but slowly I began to see she was right. The waves of grief still came, but they no longer dragged me under completely. I could breathe through them, watching them rise and fall without drowning. One breakthrough came when I realized I'd gone a whole day without checking Daniel's social media. Another when I cleaned out my phone, deleting our photos together. Small steps toward reclaiming my life. Amanda and I began to repair our friendship. I should have told you what I saw, she admitted one evening as we shared dinner at her place. I was trying to protect you, but I ended up prolonging your pain. I'm so sorry. You're still here, I said, reaching for her hand. That means everything. Old friends I'd neglected during my marriage began reaching out. Jessica from college invited me to visit her in Paris, a trip Daniel had always refused to take, claiming European cities were overrated. Just come, she urged. Change of scenery, French wine, hot French men. What's not to love? The idea of leaving Chicago, even temporarily, was appealing. Everywhere I went held memories of my life with Daniel. Paris would be untainted. I booked the ticket using some of my settlement money. 2 weeks in France just for me. The anticipation gave me something positive to focus on, a future to look toward rather than a past to escape. As preparations for the trip began, I reconnected with my former self, the woman I'd been before becoming half of Daniel and Elsa. I pulled out old journals, rediscovered books and music I'd loved before our tastes merged into one shared identity. Who were you before him? Dr. Winters asked during a session. I had to think about it. Independent, adventurous. I painted on weekends, took random classes just to learn new things, stayed up late reading instead of watching whatever show Daniel wanted to watch. And why did those things stop? Because marriage is compromise, I answered automatically. Dr. Winters raised an eyebrow. Is it, or is healthy marriage a partnership where both people encourage each other's individual growth and passions? The questions stayed with me, forcing me to reevaluate what I'd accepted as normal in our relationship. Had I compromised too much? Had I lost essential parts of myself to become the wife Daniel wanted? A week before my Paris trip, I ran into Scott Peterson at a bookstore, an old friend from our wider social circle who had gone through a divorce 2 years earlier. Elsa, he said, genuine warmth in his voice. I heard what happened. I'm really sorry. Unlike the awkward sympathy from others, Scott's felt authentic, the understanding of someone who'd walked a similar path. How did you get through it? I asked as we sat in the bookstore cafe. Everyone says it gets better, but when... He considered the question seriously. For me, it was about 8 months before I had a day where I didn't think about her. Then those days started coming more frequently. Now 2 years out, she's just someone I used to know. The time frame was simultaneously daunting and reassuring. I was only 3 months into this journey. The idea that healing had a horizon, even a distant one, gave me hope. Scott mentioned a support group for people dealing with infidelity. It helped me more than anything else, being around others who get it, who don't judge the mess of emotions. I attended my first meeting the following evening, 12 strangers in a church basement sharing stories that echoed my own. Different details, same pain, same betrayal, same struggle to rebuild. "I'm Elsa," I said when my turn came. "My husband had an affair with his assistant. They're engaged now. I found out 3 months ago when I came home unexpectedly and heard them in our bedroom." Saying it out loud to people who nodded with understanding rather than discomfort was unexpectedly liberating. These people knew. They'd lived it too. I wasn't crazy for still hurting, wasn't weak for struggling to move forward. "The hardest part," said a woman named Teresa, "is realizing you were the last to know. That people pitied you before you even knew you deserved pity." Her words crystallized something I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. The retroactive humiliation of realizing others had seen what I'd been blind to. But in this room, there was no judgment, only solidarity. I went back the next week and the next. The group became an anchor during the storm, a place where I didn't have to pretend to be healing faster than I was. The divorce proceedings continued. Gloria was worth every penny of her substantial fee, systematically dismantling Daniel's attempts to hide assets or downplay his infidelity. "He's offering 60% of the investment accounts," she informed me during a particularly tense negotiation phase. "I think we can get 75. I found myself caring less about the money than the principle. This wasn't greed, it was justice. Compensation for the life he'd stolen from me, the future he'd destroyed. The final settlement exceeded even Gloria's expectations. The house sale proceeds were split evenly. I received 80% of our investment accounts, full ownership of my retirement funds, and a significant cash payment for emotional distress. Daniel kept his 401k and the new condo, which would now have a substantial mortgage due to the settlement payments. "Congratulations," Gloria said as I signed the final paperwork. "You're officially divorced and significantly wealthier than when you started." Financial independence was a powerful balm. I didn't have to rush back to work if I wasn't ready, could take time to figure out what I wanted next. The settlement, combined with my own savings, gave me a runway to reimagine my life completely. 2 days before my Paris trip, I received a text from Daniel, the first direct communication in months. "Can we talk? There are things I need to say to you." I stared at the message for a long time, surprised by my lack of reaction. No racing heart, no surge of hope or anger, just nothing. "No," I typed back. "There's nothing left to say," he responded immediately. "Please, Elsa, I made a terrible mistake. Brooke and I broke up. I miss you, miss us." So predictable. The relationship built on betrayal had crumbled just as I'd told Brooke it would. And now he expected me to be waiting, ready to take him back. I thought about responding with anger, with righteous indignation. But the truth was, I felt nothing but a profound weariness at the thought of engaging with him again. "Goodbye, Daniel," I wrote and blocked his number. That night I dreamt of Paris. Not of Daniel, not of betrayal or loss, but of sidewalk cafes and art museums, of a future unfolding before me, undefined but full of possibility. For the first time since that terrible morning in April, I woke up feeling something like peace. 1 year after discovering Daniel's affair, I'm sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. It's smaller than our house was, just 2 bedrooms, but every inch of it is mine. Decorated in colours Daniel would have hated, filled with art I've created myself over the past year. The divorce was finalised 8 months ago. The settlement money is invested wisely, generating passive income that supplements my salary. I returned to work after 3 months away, but with boundaries I never maintained before. No more 60-hour weeks. No more sacrificing my well-being for professional advancement. In fact, I recently gave notice at the agency. In 2 weeks, I'll launch my own boutique marketing firm specializing in helping women entrepreneurs. 3 clients have already signed contracts drawn by my reputation and the fresh perspective I'm bringing to the industry. The healing journey hasn't been linear. There are still days when grief ambushes me, a song on the radio, a restaurant we used to frequent the anniversary of our wedding. But those moments are increasingly rare, the pain less sharp each time. Paris was the turning point. 2 weeks of solitude and beauty, wandering cobblestone streets and sitting in gardens with my sketchbook. I reconnected with Jessica, but also spent long days alone relearning the pleasure of my own company. In a small gallery on the left bank, I had an epiphany while staring at a Monet, that beauty still existed in the world, that my capacity to appreciate it remained intact despite everything I'd lost. That revelation broke something open in me, allowing joy to trickle back into my life. I returned to Chicago, changed, more grounded, more certain of who I was without Daniel. The support group continued to be a lifeline, and over time, my role shifted from wounded newcomer to experienced guide for others just beginning their journey through betrayal. Amanda and I are closer than ever, our friendship strengthened by surviving its near fracture. She's dating someone new, a kind professor who sometimes joins us for dinner at my place. Watching her happiness doesn't hurt anymore. Another small victory. I've heard through mutual friends that Daniel and Brooke's engagement imploded spectacularly. She apparently found text messages from yet another woman, a client this time. The poetic justice would have been satisfying 6 months ago. Now it barely registers as interesting. Daniel tried to contact me again after their breakup. Emails since I'd blocked his number, messages through friends, even flowers sent to my office with notes begging for another chance. The biggest mistake of my life, he wrote. I never stopped loving you. I donated the flowers to a nursing home and deleted the emails unread. There was a time when those words would have been everything I wanted to hear. Now they're just empty syllables from a stranger who happens to share my past. Last month, at a marketing conference in Denver, I met Michael, a creative director from Seattle with kind eyes and a quiet confidence I find intriguing. We've had a few video calls since then, conversations that flow easily and leave me smiling. It's far too soon to know if it's anything meaningful, but for the first time, I'm open to the possibility. More important than any potential romance is the relationship I've rebuilt with myself. I paint again, taking a class every Saturday morning. I joined a hiking group that explores trails outside the city each month. I read whatever books call to me, stay up as late as I want, eat ice cream for dinner, sometimes, just because I can. My therapist says the true measure of healing isn't the absence of pain, but what you build in its place. By that standard, I'm doing remarkably well. The life I'm creating isn't a replacement for what I lost. It's something entirely new, shaped by that loss, but not defined by it. The most profound lesson from this journey has been about self-trust. I ignored my intuition for months, dismissing signs that something was wrong. Never again. Now I listen to that quiet voice inside, honor my own perceptions, even when they're uncomfortable. Forgiveness has been more complicated. Not for Daniel, I'm not there yet and may never be, but for myself. Forgiving my blindness, my willingness to accept less than I deserved, my role in creating a marriage where authenticity was sacrificed for appearance. That forgiveness has been hard-won and essential. The woman who discovered her husband's betrayal that April morning no longer exists. In her place stands someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate, not despite the pain, but because of how she moved through it. If you're watching this and in the depths of your own betrayal story, know this. The agony you feel right now is not permanent. The person who hurt you does not get to define your worth or write the ending to your story. Only you can do that. Trust that the future holds unexpected gifts, that this current chapter, however dark, is not the entire book, that you are far more resilient than you can possibly imagine in your moments of deepest despair. I never would have chosen this path. Given the choice, I would have remained blissfully ignorant in my imperfect marriage, believing in a love that wasn't real. But now, standing on the other side, I can see with perfect clarity that the life I'm building is far more authentic than the one I lost. And that, surprisingly, is a gift I would never return. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to unexpected growth? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more journey stories. And remember to like and share with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most painful endings create space for the most beautiful beginnings.